We good?
We good.
All right, let's get rid
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here at the Soon to Be Legends podcast. I'm MC Clark, and with host Byron Stankus.
Yeah, hello. How you doing, Clark?
Doing great.
Really?
Doing good. A little
So
tired.
we didn't have the intro music. What's going on?
Boom,
Oh, because thank you very much, very much. So welcome everybody. Today we have with us Rob Graves and Joe LeBlanc. Rob has recently written a book called "The Horrors of Fox Hollow Farm." And Rob, you live at Fox Hollow Farms, correct?
I do.
And Joe, you were a renter-tenant there as well,
Yeah,
correct?
for about 2.5 years.
So we are going to get into a little bit about what Fox Hollow Farm is, but this portion of the show is Legends of Soon to Be Legends podcast, sponsored by LDR Studios, powered by LDR Studios, and that's all really important to say because that's where our money is made. Of course, we don't make any money because nobody listens to this thing. That's fine. Clark is LDR Studios. So Fox Hollow Farms. So Rob, you live at Fox Hollow Farms. What is so important about Fox Hollow Farms, and why would it be horrible or have horrors?
Right. Fox Hollow Farm is a farm that was once owned by a serial killer
Ah,
named
there you go.
Herb Baumeister.
I'm feigning surprise because I actually know this story. So, okay, so Herb Baumeister, serial killer.
Right.
That's it?
Well,
I think the real horrors is all the tree branches you have to pick up.
That and electricity bill.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, there are a
Okay,
lot of
so
horrors
so
there.
so it's in Westfield, Indiana, correct? It is or was how many acres?
It was 18 and a half.
So it's 18 and a half acres that was owned by a gentleman named Herb Baumeister. Herb Baumeister was a member of the community that owned a business, had a family, did all kinds of things, and then
Right.
on his days off would do stuff.
Right. Yeah, from 1980 to
Okay, there we go. Now let's start rolling.
from 1980
Yes.
to 1996, young gay men are missing or turning up missing from bars in downtown Indianapolis.
Okay.
From 1980 to 1991, all of those missing gentlemen were found dead along a corridor between I-70 between Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
They were all strangled, all from the gay bars in downtown Indianapolis. Well, all those bodies stopped turning up in 1991, which coincides when the alleged killer purchased the farm.
Okay.
But unfortunately,
The missing men kept going missing.
they continue to be to disappear.
Okay. And so how do they know this guy was the guy?
Well, the one person did not succumb to the fate that the others did, and this one person sort of led the authorities to the farm, to the killer.
Okay.
And that one person really sort of cracked the case for them.
So do we know who this one person is, or are we going to try to keep that anonymous?
No, we do.
Because there's one book called, his name was Ed Harris, and I know that was...
Tony Harris.
Tony Harris, sorry.
Tony
I
Harris.
know that was incorrect.
Yeah, Tony.
Are we okay to say people's names here, or no?
You know,
We'll leave him out of it?
Yeah,
We'll leave Mark out of it? We'll just
Right.
call the gentleman Mark?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I'll probably say it accidentally.
That's
several
right.
times.
He's probably had a good year, so... See what I did there?
Yeah, I think he's doing okay.
He's doing all right?
Right. This one person. Eventually the gay community put enough pressure on the Indianapolis Police Department to try to investigate these missing
Okay.
persons, because frankly they weren't doing a lot about it.
Right.
These guys were termed, they were drug addicts, male prostitutes, people living at the margin of society,
Right.
and frankly the police weren't doing much about it. But eventually,
and back in that time in the early '90s, particularly in Indianapolis, there was no love lost between the police department and the gay community. The gay community
Right.
didn't trust the police. The police didn't really trust the gay community. It was like that wasn't a good thing. So that it was a big deal for the gay community to even reach out and say, "Hey, some bad stuff's
That's right.
going on. Let's look into this." Right? Yeah.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. So the police went to the gay community and says, "Does anyone know anything?" And
Right.
this one person,
We'll call him Mark.
we'll call him Mark, said, "Yeah, I know. There's a guy in Hamilton County strangling people."
Okay.
And they said, "Where does he live?" And he says, "Well, I was only there once. It's called. I saw a sign. It said something farm." It's up where rich people live, north of Indianapolis.
And,
That's all
and
I
back
know.
then, it was in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Right, right.
Correct.
It was very, very isolated. The farm is on 156th Street, which is 15 miles north of the city. It was very, very remote back then, certainly, and even when we moved in about 13 years ago, it was very remote.
Yeah. So the question is, do rich people still live there? Ha! Just
Yeah.
kidding. You don't have to answer that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So anyway, so did the police find this place eventually, or what?
Yeah. Eventually, what happened was this person couldn't describe with any accuracy where the farm was, and they showed him aerial photographs of the different areas. But eventually, they said, "Well, if he comes back into the bar, get a license number."
Okay.
He came back. The alleged killer came back into the bar. They got his license number, and of course, it came back to the farm's address. So they go to this person's business, which the killer had two businesses in Indianapolis, one on West Washington Street and one in Castleton.
And they were Save-A-Lot thrift stores.
They were Save-A-Lot thrift stores. They were not the grocery stores. People often confuse the grocery stores
Okay.
with the thrift stores. These were like Goodwill stores.
Right. Okay.
And he did well with those. Everything's donated, so it's almost all profit. So they go to him at his business and they say, we believe you're involved with these disappearances. We want to search your property. And of course, he says, absolutely not. Talk to my lawyer. The lawyer, of course, says no.
Who was his lawyer?
His lawyer was a guy named Jim Voiles, who
Now, because I have done some research here, right?
Yeah.
What's really interesting is Jim Voiles did not know he was his lawyer.
that's true.
Right.
And why is Jim Voiles an interesting person for him to say
Well, Jim
That was
Voiles
his lawyer.
is a high-profile criminal defense lawyer here in Indianapolis.
who had just defended someone in a serial killing case?
He did.
Right.
He
So
did. He did.
and yeah, I thought when I looked into that, I was like, wait a minute. This guy had lawyers for his business. He had lawyers for his family. He had like 3 other lawyers, and then the cops show up and he says,
Right.
no, this guy who defends serial killers is my lawyer.
Yes. Well, eventually he did get a retainer check to Jim Voiles, and Jim Voiles says, of course, no, you can't search the property.
Right.
So at that point, they try his wife,
Okay.
and they go to the
So gay men are missing,
right.
but this gentleman, Herb Baumeister, is actually married. And if I
True.
remember correctly, he is married with 3 kids.
True. He's married at that point, I think, for 25 years, had
All
3
right.
children. And they go to his wife at the store that she ran. And they said, we believe your husband's involved with these homosexual homicides. And of course, she had to ask what a homosexual homicide was. And they said, well, these men are disappearing, and we think your husband's involved. She immediately says, well, it's ridiculous. I've been married to him for 25 years. He's never so much as put a bruise on me accidentally, and you're
Right.
telling me he kills people? She said, it just doesn't add up. It
Right.
doesn't. She said, get proof. And of course, they didn't have it.
Right.
So in the winter of 94, her son found a complete skeleton in the backyard. Complete, meaning skull, all the bones. She said it looked like somebody laid
And it was-
down and died.
Yeah, it was just laying in the ground there.
Laying on the ground. It was
And-
about 100 feet off the back side of the house.
But it was in the woods.
It was in the woods.
Okay.
Right.
And here's another thing I think we kind of glossed over, which I think made this a little bit more difficult for the police, was that the Mark fellow seemed to refer to the serial killer as somebody else. And then when they went around gay bars and started asking about him,
Right.
they were saying that there was a gentleman named
Brian Smart.
Brian Smart.
Right.
The problem is this fellow that they have a license plate on and say they're at his place is named.
Herb Bowelmeister.
So you've got that kind of mix. So that's
Right,
there's-
yeah.
You're missing some of the proof.
Exactly.
Okay, so so the police finally get an opportunity to get on there. So the son finds a
Son-
skeleton.
Yeah, son finds a skeleton, shows it to his mother.
Right.
His mother showed it to Herb when he came home that night. He very quickly dismissed his father's anatomical skeleton from his medical practice. His father was an anesthesiologist down at Methodist Hospital here in Indianapolis, and she believed him.
Okay.
He was a pack rat. He collected all sorts of things. It was not out of his personality to have something like
Right.
that. So,
Sure. So it seemed plausible, and his father was a doctor, and he
Yes.
would have something like a skeleton. And
He had weird mannequins in the pool area at one
Well,
time.
yeah, he collected a lot of things.
he was an odd bird, right?
He was an odd bird.
He was an odd bird.
Yeah,
But
and
so having a skeleton
Yeah.
would fit right into, hey, odd bird.
And the police told me later that there was a skeleton in the garage. It just wasn't that one.
Right. Okay.
So she said I went out a week later. He said I'll get rid of it. I don't know how it got out here. I'll get rid of it. She said I went out a week later and it was gone. So she sort of took him at his word. But that was always sort of in the back of her mind.
So had that happened prior to the police showing up, or before the police had showed up?
That actually
after the police showed up.
Yeah, that actually happened prior to the police showing up because the police, I think, didn't actually start questioning her until closer to the time that he actually killed himself.
Okay, so you've jumped the shark there.
I
That's
did.
okay.
I did
We're
jump.
good.
I did
We're
jump
good.
ahead a little bit.
So the police then continue to pressure her, or does Herb do something different? Or how do the police eventually get onto the property? Correct.
Right. Yeah. She believed him, and she said get proof, and of course they didn't have it.
Right.
Everything was sort of circumstantial. So more time goes by, and unfortunately, some more people disappear.
Right.
And in the summer of '96, Herb, the killer's behavior became so bizarre even for her that while he was away, they had a condo at Wawasee, which is a lake town north of Indianapolis. He was up there with his son. She decides to call her lawyer and say, I want to talk to the police.
Right.
The businesses were failing.
Herb's behavior became erratic.
Very erratic behavior. He had actually moved out of the house into the in-law quarters with his son to kind of get away from her. She had filed for divorce.
So things were going downhill.
Yeah, things were starting to
for whatever
unravel.
reason.
Things were unraveling. So while Herb was up at Wawasee with his son in the summer of '96, June of '96, she talks to her lawyer and says, I want to talk to the police.
Okay.
And I think after having spoken to her lawyer, it felt maybe that she should start cooperating or she might be implicated.
Okay.
So they arrange for the police to come out to the farm, and they sit down at the table, and she says, well, I'm at liberty to tell you, I found a skeleton in 1994 in the backyard. And, of course, at that point, they said, show us where you found it.
Right.
So they walk out of the house to the backyard and into the woods. And she said, well, it was in this area here.
Right.
And they start looking around, and there are bones and teeth everywhere. And, of course, immediately she says, go get my son. He's up at Wawasee with his father. I want him back here. Obviously, she now believes that Herb is not right.
Might be involved with this.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, is not right. Maybe harm the child. So at that point, the police are the investigating officers are from Hamilton County.
Okay.
So it's now a Hamilton County issue. The guys are missing from Indianapolis.
Which is Marion County.
Marion County.
So jurisdictional issues.
Right. So now it's a Hamilton County issue because you're finding remains in Hamilton County. They said, hold it. We're going to go up and get the son, but we don't know what this is. This could be an Indian burial ground. There was a real reluctance to believe this was going on in Carmel. We have a Carmel address at the farm.
And if I also remember correctly, from what I said, part of the reason the reluctance is he was an upstanding member of society. I mean, he was donating to charities with his things. They were having lunches with the mayor, that kind of thing. So, I mean, he seemed to be a relatively on the outside put together fellow who was an upstanding member of the community.
Well, also men were not disappearing from Carmel.
Right.
From other areas.
From Indianapolis.
I mean,
Okay.
there's no gay bars in Carmel, though.
No.
Not as far as you know.
That's right.
Or everyone is. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a real reluctance to believe this could be happening. So they go up and collect the son, and they say, look, your mother wants you back. This is part of the divorce proceedings.
Right.
And Herb very willingly gave the child up, said, go back, your mother wants you, that's fine. Bring the child back. And, of course, everybody wants to know where Herb is.
Right.
And at that point, the Hamilton County prosecutor, because we're in Hamilton County now, says, we we don't know what we have here.
Right.
Had we grabbed him, she said he would have certainly asked for a speedy trial, which in
Right.
Indiana is 70 days. And she said we just didn't have a case.
Right.
The police told me later, they said if her Bowelmeister walked in this room today, there's nothing really connecting him to these killings.
So they should collect the son, and they have no case. So why do we know fairly definitively that this guy's a killer?
Well, I think at that point it was becoming obvious that he was probably involved.
Right.
But there was just not a lot of direct evidence that he had done this. I mean, you ask, well, there are bones in your backyard. Well, I didn't put them there. Prove it.
And it was densely wooded.
It was densely wooded. That's
Very
true.
densely wooded.
But something else happened that made it fairly definitive. I'm trying to. This is called a leading question.
Yeah.
His name is Dr. Narwaki.
Oh, sure. Well,
Okay, there we go.
Right.
There we go.
So,
There we go.
So,
I thought
So they finally.
I thought we were going to talk about eating the peanut butter sandwich and taking a nap.
No, that's
That's a great story.
that's for the
That's a great
screenplay,
story.
Clark.
That's right.
That's for the screenplay.
well, yeah, certainly. So these were anthropological remains. These are bones.
Right.
These are not intact bodies. These bodies had all decomposed. So you need to call an anthropologist, a forensic anthropologist, which we happen to have one in Indianapolis. And
Right.
at the time, back in '96, there were only 25 in the country.
Okay.
And
So-
the cost of doing DNA samples was
Well, we are not even at
astronomical.
DNA samples. We
Right.
don't even know what these bones are yet, as
You're
far
right.
as the story
Yeah,
goes.
Right.
We all know.
Right.
I know.
We all know. We've been to that. We've been to Rob's house.
We've seen it.
We've been to Rob's
Right.
house.
So they immediately call Dr. Narwaki from the University of Indianapolis. He comes out, and he very quickly determines these are not, this
Ancient.
is not ancient, these are recent, and,
And so they do an excavation.
correct.
They excavate the area. They find some additional stuff. They excavate other areas. They find
Right.
even more. And
Right.
hit me with the number. They
Well-
find bones. Hit me with the number.
Right, there were about 5,500 bones and bone
So there were
fragments.
5,000 bones and bone fragments
Right.
found on that property.
Right.
That they initially thought was how many folks?
Well,
How many people?
The official number is 11
Right.
because they found 11 of these first left metacarpal bones. So they know there's at least 11 left hands.
11 left hands.
But the anthropologist told me if I wanted his opinion, it was probably more like 17 to 20, just because of the sheer number.
Sheer number. And how many
The-
femurs there are or whatever
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that, right?
There's just a lot of bones. So out of the 11 for sure, they identified 8.
As particularly missing people, yes?
Correct.
So they-
Yes.
They
And
directly, no, that was 8. Okay, so there's 3 bodies there that they know are dead bodies that nobody knows who they are and nobody has claimed them from missing.
Right.
Is that
Well, that's
correct?
if there's in fact only 11. If there's more than like 17 or 20, then
Right.
then you have
Sure.
multiples.
But I think that that's amazing. I think that we know, at least scientifically, that there's 11 bodies, and only 8 of them can be actually attached to some, which were at least 10 missing men at that time.
correct.
Which means even if all 10 were identified at that site, there's still a missing guy that is on that property that has never been registered as missing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty prolific, right?
Sure.
Never mind, like you had said, that prior to that, there were these other stranglings that, quote, ended as soon as he got the property.
right.
So there may be, like the FBI has said,
With similar MO, right?
similar MO that says that
Right.
they may be the same guy,
Right.
right? So he may be fairly prolific.
And then how many would that be in total if you would
Somewhere in the
include
30s,
the
right?
Yeah,
70
probably 30s,
murders?
30s, 40s.
So 20, when I did the math, it was like 26 to 38, somewhere is that range. So
Right.
they found all of these bones. They
Right.
found all these bones. They definitively knew that these bones were recent. They were identified from some DNA samples, some
Right.
teeth and that sort of stuff that we knew 8 of these people that were missing were definitively there. We know that those bodies were disposed of on that property.
Right.
And then what happens with Mr. Baumeister, the alleged killer?
Well, while they're at the farm doing this excavation, one of the detectives on the scene, apparently his girlfriend worked for a local news station, got wind of this and broadcast that they're finding human remains on a farm in Hamilton County. And Herb, the killer, saw this on the news and started his drive to Canada.
This goes to Canada.
Yeah, right. He's on the run at this point. And eventually he winds up in Pinery Provincial Park in Ontario. And
Which is just
outside
across
the-
from Windsor
right.
and Sarnia, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's correct.
My daughter played hockey there.
I drove
Yeah.
through there for 31 years. Going
Did
to
you really?
Canada.
Yeah, the
Yep.
little Blue Ridge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So he goes to this. He goes to this Pinery Park.
right,
And?
ultimately kills himself, shoots himself.
Shoots himself.
Right.
What caliber weapon?
I think it was a 357 that supposedly had been owned by his father.
Right. It was his dad's gun. Yeah.
That's a
So
hell
I
of
heard
a
that.
weapon to shoot yourself
So,
with.
so one of the reasons that we
Good
have to
job.
say allegedly, right, is
Right.
because
Yeah, he
did
was.
he left a suicide note? Is that correct?
He did leave a suicide note.
And?
He
Ate a sandwich.
He apologized
He
for
had a
many
sandwich.
things.
There's your peanut butter sandwich.
That's right. He apologized to the family
For financial ruin.
for leaving them in financial ruin. He
Blamed his wife.
He did. He did blame his wife. He apologized to anyone that might find him for messing up the beauty of the park.
Right.
And he said, I only put one bullet in the gun because I didn't want a child to find the gun and
Right.
hurt themselves. And then he did leave a suicide note, and he had a habit of eating a peanut butter sandwich every day around 5 o'clock. And he said, I was going to eat a peanut butter sandwich and go to sleep.
Right.
And he signed it, the Herb Bowelmeister.
But
That's
I think
really
the point,
the Herb Baumeister?
the Herb Bowelmeister. I saw
That's
I
pretty
saw a
odd.
photo of the.
Yeah.
So it was really signed that way. But I think the thing that's really interesting, and the point I was trying to make here is he did not cop to any of these murders.
No.
He never admitted to anything like that. He never admitted to any even homosexual behavior.
No.
Never mind having homosexual erotic asphyxiation sex, which is the Mark fellow claimed that's what they were doing.
Right.
And then he's dead. Now the lead suspect in this case, that there's no trial because there doesn't need to be a trial, and
Right.
they just wrap this thing up, close it, and we never hear from it for the most part. So I think for me, one of the reasons that this is one of America's most prolific serial killers that almost no one has never really heard of unless you're in that serial killer business.
Well,
is
he was
because-
the kinder general.
well, it's not even,
gentler
but it's not
serial
even
killer.
that. He didn't have a trial. He didn't.
Well, I
First
get
off,
that.
nothing was like absolutely horrific. He strangled people out and then disposed of their bodies. Which another thing that I think is really interesting is he either laid them out into the woods and let them rot, put them in a brush pile,
Right.
or burnt them eventually because after the son found them, he was putting them in a fire. So none of these were buried. And
Correct.
yet the gentleman who lives on the property now is named Rob Graves.
What are the
So-
chances of that?
I know,
Can't put
right?
that name on the mailbox.
Yes, gosh, serial killer bodies everywhere, and he's robbing Graves, Robert
Well,
Graves.
Yeah, we did.
It's
find
not robbing,
some,
right? It's
Vicks
Robert.
Vapor
Okay.
rub in the creeks, which we
Vapor rub. Oh
probably
yeah,
Bottles.
rubbed underneath his nose for the smell.
yeah. But was it him? Do you think that did that, or was
Do you
he?
think that was him that did it?
So let me bring this all together. So basically, that's the story of Herb Baumeister, the serial killer.
Right.
We haven't heard a lot about him because there wasn't a lot of newspaper coverage because he didn't go to trial. It wasn't sensational in the way these people were killed. It was a bunch of people that were fringe of society, so it wasn't like a huge international thing. And it kind of, for whatever it's worth, went away.
It did.
It just kind of died down, and then the house was abandoned and was left to kind of just be for weird, creepy people. And then you
Squatters
come
and
along,
such.
and then you come along and go, dude, I want to live there.
Yeah.
Now, you purchased this house, or you
Yeah.
made a deal to purchase this house,
Right.
right? So when you were looking at property or looking for property, did you know that property was an infamous serial killer's place?
Initially, no.
Well, initially, no. Okay.
Right. We were
You do kind of fall in love with the spread when you pull down that driveway for
You
the
gotta be
first
careful how you
time.
phrase. Be careful of phrasing, Clark.
we were looking for a place for horses. We'd always had horses, and
Okay.
And Vicky, my wife, found it in a multiple listing,
Okay.
and it wasn't too far from where we had lived at
Previously,
the time.
yeah.
And we decided we'll go. Let's go look at that.
Okay.
And
I mean, 18 acres, right?
it's 18 and a half
And
acres.
it was a good price at the time.
Well,
for some reason.
it was pricey.
Okay.
I mean, the asking price at the time was $2.8 million, which, had it not been a stigmatized property, it was probably fair.
Okay.
So,
Wow, he's throwing out real numbers, Clark.
yeah.
How about that? So okay, so you guys looked at this property.
So
for horses.
we show up there, and the first thing we see is the gate is chained shut.
Okay.
There's a gate at the long of a long winding driveway, and the gate's chained shut. The grass in the pastures is 4 feet tall.
Right.
We drive down to the house. The house is clearly empty.
Right.
The windows are cranked open. Paint's peeling. There's an odd.
So it's in disrepair.
It's in disrepair. And
Right.
clearly, no one's living there.
Right.
So immediately, I asked Andy, my realtor. I said, "What's going on, Andy?" And at that point, they have to tell you.
Right.
In Indiana, if you don't have to disclose it, but if you're asked and you don't disclose something,
Then you're in trouble?
Then you're in trouble.
Okay.
So he says, "Well, do you remember that story?" I said, "Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, this is it." And at that point, we kind of looked at each other, the family and wife and the kids, and we thought, "Well, should we just leave now?"
Right.
But we were there, and we thought, "Well, we'll just look at it.
Okay.
Let's take a look at it." So it's a very beautiful property.
Yes.
It's in a very desirable part of town.
Yes.
It's a large house, 2 horse stables, beautifully constructed.
Right.
And, having learned later, a lot of places where people are murdered get torn down.
Right.
But there are very few places left standing where this many people were actually murdered that are still standing.
And now, just to stop you there, and it is understood that the bodies weren't just disposed of the property. Those people were actually murdered at that property. Mm-hmm. At least that's the understanding, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
The one
so they were
person-
really murdered there and dumped there. And you're still looking at this house going,
the pool.
uh-huh, this is
Right.
good for me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's
I mean, even in the disarray that it was in, you could see the upside.
That's a nice piece of property. Sure.
Right.
And I mean, it has. I mean, just to kind of clarify it, because Clark had said something there that it has an indoor pool.
right.
And we find out later that that's probably a big part of how these murders took place. Was in the pool and having to
right.
do with that.
Right.
And
The pool.
and then pool is downstairs.
The pool's in Sorens. It's an indoor. There's an
indoor
indoor
pool.
pool. The house is very large. It's 12,000 square feet.
Jeez.
Has 4 bedrooms, in-law suite, 9 bathrooms, beautifully constructed.
Right.
Meant to stand for many, many years.
It was built in 77.
Yeah, the house
Yep.
was built in 77. I figured if we could get it for a good price,
Right. Which was not the asking price.
which was not the asking price, that we probably couldn't get hurt.
Right.
Because I figured just with the land alone, if you have to bulldoze everything, all the buildings, the land, the raw land up there still has significant value.
Right.
So we decided to make an offer,
Okay.
and
Now, we've had this conversation,
right.
and you have approached your wife and said, "Are you sure it's okay that you would live in a serial killer's house?" And her response was,
I don't know. I think it
"Well,
was the
the
original.
house didn't kill anybody."
Well, yeah. The
that's good.
house didn't.
Yeah.
The house didn't.
She
do
really
anything.
wanted horses.
Yeah, it was.
Right, she did, but I mean, ultimately, I think that's an interesting thing. Well, the house didn't kill anybody.
She's pretty matter of fact. She was
Right.
pretty matter of fact about
Right.
it. Not very emotional.
Right.
The realtors told me that the history bothered about 50% of the people. 50%
Okay.
of the people said I wouldn't live there under any circumstances. But the real deterrent to the property, and we didn't find out till you're there for a while, is the upkeep.
Right.
Tremendous amount of upkeep.
So when
I
you-
remember the first day y'all started cutting that field.
Right. Yeah, you find out that it's a lot of
So
work.
it's a lot of upkeep. So really what it comes down to is you've got this 18-acre property. You've got a barn. You've got horses. You've got all of the stuff that you want.
Right.
It just happens to have a bit of a stigma that it doesn't seem to be a big deal for
That's
you
right.
guys, right?
That's right.
And you got it at a good price, I'm assuming, because you did pay for it. You don't have
Yeah.
to tell us.
Yeah.
Although if you want to, that's fine. I don't care. You're already
Well, it
throwing
took
numbers.
3 years to buy it.
Took 3 years to buy it.
We started looking at it in 2006.
Okay.
And
What was the cat's name that owned that Ed?
Henry.
Henry Sorens.
Henry Sorensen, yeah. And Henry had wound up with the property as part of a group of investors that were trying to flip it.
Right.
And it had been on the market really continually from 97
Right. So
till that point. No one had ever lived there, minus
Squatters.
a few squatters,
Yeah,
and,
squatters,
and a crazy
The maintenance guy.
Crazy Dave, the caretaker.
Oh yeah, that guy.
And so the house was really vacant. And really that was the biggest mistake they made, was that not moving in. Because, if you add in the history, not
Disrepair.
disrepair,
the size of the upkeep on the
yeah,
acreage.
it puts a lot of people off.
Right.
So we took 3 years to buy it, and we finally got it down to a price that was roughly what the raw land was worth.
Okay.
And we moved in and started cleaning it up.
Okay. So
Didn't you all sleep in one room the first night with the lights
Well,
on?
yeah, when we first moved in, it's...
I would.
it's-
Yeah,
I
right.
don't think lights ever go off in that house if I lived there. But
Yeah,
I
it's,
think I did.
we did, there's some uneasiness with being a new
Sure.
house, and,
Right.
and then you add in the history. And when you're first there, we did think about the killings a little bit more.
Sure.
It was hard not to.
Did every squeak of the house that first night freak the shit out of you guys?
okay, so yeah, exactly. So we're actually hitting on where I want to get to, here, right? So we're hitting on after there's a serial killer, there's dead bodies, all this sort of stuff, and you buy this house,
Yeah.
you move into it, and you think, oh, gee, the upkeep is the big deal. That seems to be a
Right.
limiting factor on my enjoyment of this place.
It's not that creepy guy with no legs that
Right.
walks
Clark,
around
will
the
you let
backyard.
him get to that, man? I'm trying to set him up, bro.
Right.
So basically, so the house is totally fine. There's no problems, and it's
Right.
just the upkeep, and that's why you're here.
Right. Yeah, we were there about a year, and
Okay.
we had been trying to put it back together slowly, cleaning it up, and I was on the back side of the house painting,
Okay.
and my wife was down lower, not on a ladder, painting, and she hollers up to me and said, "There's a man in the woods in a red shirt."
Okay.
Now, we get a lot of visitors to the property that are
Right.
maybe not invited. We do have a gate, but if you leave the gate open for any reason, cars come down the drive. To this day,
To this day, and the reason for that is
it's a very
groupies, right?
It's a very infamous property.
Okay.
It's been on multiple television shows. which
So
is
your
another-
wife seems to see some groupie in the woods,
She yeah. So I figure it's another looky. Like in Hollywood, they call them looky-loos.
right?
So I get down off the ladder and I said, "Well, where is he?" And she said, "Well, he's gone."
Okay.
And I said, "What do you mean he's gone?" She said, "Well, I didn't tell you, but that's the second time I've seen it."
Okay.
and I said-
and she said it.
I said, "Saw what?" And she said, "Over by that group of trees." And this is to the west side of the property. She said, I saw a guy in a red shirt. She said he had a very short, what she described as a Marine style haircut.
Okay.
And he had a red T-shirt on, and he was walking away,
Right.
but he had no legs. He was sort of see-through, or
He was an apparition.
what we would now, yes.
Yeah. He was floating. It was
Yeah,
just a floating torso that looked like it was walking with no legs.
Correct. And she said she thought to herself, he's going to hurt himself walking into that tree.
And
And he walked in and just disappeared.
disappeared, like walking through a tree.
Walking through a tree, just
Okay.
just
Nice.
walked away. And of course, I at that point made a joke. I think it was a menopause joke. Maybe.
Uh-oh.
Sure.
You did not go there.
She's seeing things now,
okay.
and she just told me very matter of factly, that's what I saw.
And just to kind of reiterate, your wife is a very matter of fact sort of person who does not believe in ghosts.
Yeah, I was almost forced to believe her. We've
Okay.
been married a long time.
Right.
36. Well, at that point, not 37 years, but at this point, 37 years. So.
Okay.
Joe, who's sitting next to me, had moved into the
Yeah,
in-law quarters.
But you did something first.
Well,
You
but he's
called-
the one that prompted me to call.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Joe,
Because you found it on the internet.
Correct, but let me go back to
perfect. Go.
the
jump in.
afternoon. It was around noon. I was out with some friends. the
Joe
night before,
sees
so I
dead
was
people too.
a wee bit tired,
Okay.
and Rob's knocking on my door at noon, 12:30 or something like this.
So still morning for you.
Yeah. So Rob's like, come on, open the door.
Right.
Put on a red shirt. I want you to run through the woods. I'm thinking, I didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. His kids have a new pellet gun, water balloon launcher, something.
Right.
I'm a moving target.
Right.
I said, And he's hounding me for like a half an hour. I said, just put on a red shirt and run through the woods. Well, tell me why I'm doing this. Nope, just do it. So I thought, well, if you tell me why I'm doing this, I might actually do it.
Yeah.
And so I looked through my closet. I don't own a solid red shirt. So we asked his son Michael, and I put one on and went through the woods because he
Right.
told me why I was to do this, because Vicky saw a guy in a red shirt
Right.
with no legs. I thought, well, that's hilarious. He goes, I know.
I thought she'd see it again.
Yeah, so I go through the woods, doing the same, told me
Thing,
where to
right.
run, and she realized it wasn't me or didn't think it was funny, but we thought it was hilarious. So I didn't know much details about it other than
Sure.
a guy with no legs and a red T-shirt or
Sure.
something. So I think it was a Wednesday. We went
don't
out
need
to a
be that
pool or
specific,
whatever,
yeah.
and anyway, I had a bad sunburn. I couldn't sleep, and I walked up and down the driveway about 1:45 in the morning, walking back at a old black Labrador that sat down on the driveway and just stared off at these 3 trees on the west side of the house. And I'm yelling, "Come on, Fred, let's go, let's go!" And he's just sitting there, and he looks at me, looks back at the trees, looks at me. So I look over there and I see a guy walking with no legs and a shirt, a red T-shirt, and the dog runs off after him. And I thought, in all the horror movies, you never run after the dog that goes into the woods. So
Okay.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Sorry,
the
Fred,
dog runs
you've been a
around the
good
3
dog.
trees.
So you got to see the guy in the red shirt
Yeah,
too.
I was
right?
like, but here's the strangest thing that to this day just blows my mind is, the house is in the middle of nowhere.
right.
We don't have neighbors stacked on top of us. It wasn't
Right.
some guy looking for his cat or dog. He was out of place, right?
Right.
And in the middle of at 1:45 in the morning, you're outside and kind of vulnerable because there's no lights on
Right.
and whatever, and you see somebody walking on the side of your house, you'd either be fight or flight. You'd either chase him off or
Right.
kind of duck down and hide till he's gone. I had none of that. I had this sense of calm come over me, like I was supposed to see it. It's very strange. So the next day, I'm at work. I talked to Rob and
Now,
say,
also, you guys work together as well,
We
right?
work
so,
together.
So just to kind of, you guys work at the same place, and you were living in the in-law quarters, as they call it, just to kind of
yeah,
help everybody out.
And that's where Herb was living when they were going through their
Yeah.
situation.
Right. Okay. So cool. So okay.
true.
So you're
So
calm.
I tell Rob at work what I said. I saw something really strange. I wanted to talk to him about it. He goes, "You're crazy.
Right.
You're nuts." So I couldn't talk to him about it. So when I got home, I was trying to think how I could talk to his wife Vicky.
Right.
And being she's a doctor, that's kind of a scientist / doctor,
Right.
and the way she thinks. And I thought, well, I want to do this in a way. I want to take her outside by herself and show her what I saw, and not ask. I won't allow her to talk at all. I just want to explain everything I saw, the details where I saw it, where it walked, how
Right.
tall it was, about its clothing, and say at the end, did we see the same thing? I didn't want to feed off each
Right.
other's information. And so he was 5'8", had a military crew cut. His shirt was untucked. It was a red round neck T-shirt. He had no scars, tan lines, rings, or anything like that. No tattoos, and thin guy. And it was odd. He kind of walked down. There's a slight valley starting on the side of the house.
Right.
Kind of turned into a creek. But where he walked straight on level ground, but the ground wasn't there. It had kind of worn
Ground.
away.
He was straight and level, but the ground was curved.
Yeah, it was like he was walking there in the past. And he walked in front of 2 trees, behind a third, and walked past it, and then just kind of vaporized. But it was as clear as you and I across from each other.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Did we
But-
ever determine which missing person that might have been?
I think Vicky figured it out.
Yeah, she believes it's a guy named Alan,
Okay.
which
Okay.
one of the missing people was a guy
So
named Roger
after
Allen.
after this experience,
Yeah.
correct you. You called up some ghost hunters who had been to the property previously. Is that correct?
Right, and I believe the way I remembered it was Joe had found
Oh,
his
that's right.
name on the internet. He
And
found
he had found a guy of some ghost hunter who had.
Yeah, so William and I, one of his youngest son, we were on the computer, and you couldn't help but
Right,
look
look it
the
up.
place
Sure,
up
yeah,
and
of
stuff
course.
online, and we looked up it was this ghost hunting deal that was on Fox 59
Okay.
TV show, and it was on YouTube. And so at the end they said, well, and in 2 weeks we're next going to go visit the former home of Herbert Baumeister.
Okay.
And so that time I contacted Rob, said, hey, we got to call this producer at Fox 59 and whatever and get a hold of these people.
Right.
And then I think you reached out to him. And then about 3 weeks later, he calls you back at work, and we're sitting across from each other. And
And he had already been to so this ghost hunter had already been to the property.
He had been to
and
the
he
house.
told you something about what he saw at the property without so basically from the story that you told me was you called this fella up who had been to the property to do ghost hunting. And you said, I think we saw something. And he says, let me stop you there. And then what did he say?
Well, the initial conversation was, I said, we live there now. I said, I understand you came out here and did some kind of investigation. Did you find anything? And he says, well, yeah, that's one of the most haunted houses in Indiana.
Right.
And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, haven't you seen anything? And I said, well, I haven't. I said, my wife did.
Right.
And then he said, well, let me tell you what she saw and where she saw it.
Okay.
He said, you look out your master bathroom window to the west side of the property. There's a group of 3 trees. She saw a guy in a red shirt with no legs. And of course,
he said that unprompted.
This
Yes,
was on
and
now
property.
you're
18 acres of property.
Yeah,
and
this
your
was-
wife, and that was exactly, and your wife had seen it, and you had seen it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right? The same guy. And this
Right.
guy independently has told you exactly what you saw.
exactly.
And didn't the psychic take off running
isn't
down
that
the
kind of
driveway or
creepy?
something they talked about? Or
Well, he just said, look, we would love to come back out there and do a
Right.
full investigation for you at no cost
Sure.
and confidential. But we had sort of decided we were not going to talk about this
Right.
any
Oh,
longer
yeah,
because the property value had been hurt badly. And we
By
thought,
ghosts?
well, by everything.
Okay,
You
by
know,
all
the,
that.
the
Okay.
history,
Yeah, gotcha.
everything.
Okay.
We thought, well, we'll just stop talking about this and the property value will go up and we'll all just walk off into the sunset.
Okay.
But at that point, I said, no, I really don't want any part of that.
Okay.
And he said, fine. So more time went by, and I get a phone call from the same guy about 6 months later, and he said, look, we have I'm at a paranormal conference here in Indianapolis. We have people from the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Sci-Fi Channel. They're all in town here, and we would love to come out and do an investigation for you, but it has to be this week.
Okay.
This was like a Thursday. And I don't know, something, I just agreed to it. I don't know why. but I
Probably
did.
the dollar signs. They offered you money.
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no money changed.
And
hands.
that's,
like,
where, and that's where the weirdness begins.
And that's where
yeah,
the
now
witness
you've heard
began.
of
Wait,
a
wait.
3-ring circus, right? This was a 5-ring circus
Right.
that evening.
What was the
It's
name of that
creepy?
outfit?
Night Paranormal.
Ranger.
Night Paranormal.
Night Paranormal.
Yeah, so I agreed to it. Well, Vicky, my wife, had gone to Colorado for this medical conference, and she said, I called her and I said, hey, the Ghostbusters are coming out Saturday night. You'll be
Right.
back in town. And she said, good. Maybe they'll pick up on what I pick up on.
Okay.
And once again, I go, what are you talking about?
Right.
She apparently doesn't tell me anything anymore. So she said, well, there's a place in the house I don't like to go.
Okay.
Oh, that's
I said,
right.
I said, where? And she says, well, I don't want to tell you because you'll tell them. I said, no, I won't tell them, I promise. So finally, she said, well, it's in your bathroom in front of the closet. I just don't like going in there. I said, what's wrong? She said, hair just stands on the back of my neck. She said, it's like a wall. She said, it's like a brick wall that just, I don't like going in there. I said, okay.
Whatever,
All
yeah,
right,
okay.
fine,
They call it a
whatever.
portal.
Yeah. Well, that's coming. So
Boy, you guys love to jump ahead here, man.
So-
I'm trying to get him there, and you're already like, oh, I'm already ahead.
So that Saturday, I took off work a little early, and all these people show up, about 30 people.
Right.
And I recognize some of them from these TV shows that I've seen on
Now, are you prior to this? Were you a fan of that sort of
no,
stuff? Were
no,
you a serial killer groupie yourself or anything like that? Just,
no, but
Really did
It
find a
is
place.
pretty
No, yeah, I mean,
impressive how dedicated they are to their craft.
yeah, they
Okay.
were. Yeah, they're,
Sure.
These people, they take it very seriously. So these people show up. Now they're all supposedly from out of town.
Right.
I'm not allowed to narrate. I'm not allowed to tell them any history of the property.
Okay.
Supposedly they don't know where they are.
because internet doesn't exist. Oh wait, we already are. But
Exactly.
anyway,
Exactly.
Sure.
So they come into our entryway. We're introducing ourselves, and 3 psychics came along. Now I've never talked to a psychic in my life,
Okay.
and there was a woman, her son who was 18, who supposedly sees and hears spirits, and then an older gentleman who was a psychic.
Okay.
The woman, Deborah, I think was her name, said, as we're introducing ourselves, she points to the top of our stairs in the entryway and said, there's a male spirit standing at the top of the stairs. He's not happy I'm here.
Okay.
And of course, I don't see anything.
Right.
And her son, who was standing next to her, said, and exactly the way he said it was, there's a room in this house for a man I want to see. Room for a man.
Yeah, the man's room.
Yeah. And, of course, that turned out to be my bathroom. So they set up all their equipment. They do all their little investigative work that they do till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And finally, I can ask questions.
Right.
We sit down at the table, and I said, all right, Deborah, what's going on here? She said, well, there's at least 5 spirits in the house, and they were victims of a killer. And she said, the killer's here as well. And she points to an area in the living room next to a window, and she said, he's standing there right now. And, of course, I don't see this.
Sure.
And then she tells me in great detail things about the killer, things about the victims, very specific things about the case. And I just, being a skeptic, it was all too good. They knew too much. She said, your bathroom is an active area in the house.
Clark, that's a portal.
That's
right. Hey, there we are.
There's
Now
like
I-
3 portals.
Bring it back around. Okay, go ahead. So your bathroom.
Right. So, okay, so they leave.
But the point of that is, you had these people come in and they verified what your wife was saying, at least to some degree.
Yeah, independently.
Yeah, that's kinda cool.
How they knew that, I don't know.
So there's
And then
gay
did
men
you start
coming in
believing
and
at
out-
that
in and out of
point?
your closet.
Did
Are
I
you
start believing?
Are you totally skeptical of all of it still?
I'm still a little skeptical.
Maybe a lot.
Although,
So are you skeptical now? I mean, look, Joe's had experiences, and we can even get into some of them. I know he's had more than that because he lived in the house. Your wife has seen things.
Right.
Your kids have seen anything?
William has heard things. My youngest, who lives in the in-law quarters now where Joe lived, has heard footsteps and things, knocking on the door.
Knocking on the door.
But,
I had one weird experience filming in that in-law quarter.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that because we've had many television shows there. But
Right, but ultimately, so that,
am I
and then,
a skeptic?
And then the other thing is, walking through the woods, you have this strange habit of picking up sticks. I've walked through the woods with you, so you like to pick up sticks. You're looking at the ground, you pick up sticks.
Right.
There's sticks everywhere in
The
the
kids
woods.
have a song about it.
Okay.
Well,
But my point is, you are picking up sticks all the time, but other people have picked up other things on the property since you've been there.
well, certainly, the estimate of the bones at 5,500
Right.
they estimate it at 50%.
It's 50% of.
Right. 50% of all the bones, only 50% have been recovered.
Okay, so
So there's
Another 6,000
could be
fragments.
again, what I'm getting at is the first time I went to your house and we're walking around and you're showing us
Yeah.
some stuff,
Yeah.
and then we go into the house and you open up a drawer and you have a little drawer at
Well-
that time that had several human bones in it.
well. I take them down to the University of Indianapolis
Right.
when I get a couple to make a trip.
When you get a couple, like
You don't have a bone drawer in your kitchen? Come on.
how are you still finding bones?
He's the bone collector.
I don't go looking for them, but they do turn up.
They do turn.
do
I mean,
wind up in the
still.
kitchen
Like, when's the
drawer.
last time you still found a bone on that property?
I don't think Rob's ever found a bone.
No, you've never found a bone because you're a skeptic. But,
That's right.
but people have found bones on your property.
They
like
have found bones.
How recently?
Oh, I don't know. It's probably been a year.
But
I mean, you think
even
with-
still in a year?
You think with all the sticks you pick up, you just
I know.
accidentally pick up a
It-
bone.
that's
Right.
crazy, but-
He's really looking for bones, but
Is
he's
he, are you really looking for
no,
bones?
No, But, and people ask all the time, well, how can you live there? I honestly don't think about it any longer
No,
unless
no.
someone asks me about it.
No.
Honest to goodness, I can go in the basement, in the pool where he supposedly killed people, and I don't.
Does it?
And by the
does
way,
not
you
cross
guys
my
have made it look amazing.
Yeah, it's a nice house.
Well,
It's beautiful, beautifully
It is
restored
definitely
house.
worth more than $2.8 million now if anyone wants to buy it.
yes.
Yeah, I think I'd find some place to live if somebody came up with that kind of money. But,
So, but the question's still at hand. After all of these experiences, a serial
Yes.
killer's been there. They're finding bones. You're still to this day finding bones on the property, right?
Right,
You have you're members of your family, people who have visited, have heard voices, have seen things. You have ghost hunters come onto the show saying this is an active location still, right? They still want to come on.
Yeah.
Every October, it's like a frenzy of people wanting to get onto your property to
And
do
you
it
had
and tell
Zach
stories.
from the
And
Ghost Adventure.
With all
Right.
of that, are you still a skeptic? Do you believe in ghosts?
the only thing that really causes me pause
Okay.
to want to believe it is what my wife told me.
Okay.
Had it not been for her, I would still be a skeptic. I've heard what people have told me.
Right.
I have seen some evidence of what they do. We have one shelf in a bathroom downstairs that
Okay.
they move things from one end of the shelf to the other. And I can't explain it. So there are things that happen that I can't explain. It's nothing bad. It's nothing malevolent. It's poltergeist type activity.
Want to put a hidden camera on there for once? Huh? Clark, bring one of the cameras over.
So, do I believe? I believe there is something to it. Now, some things have happened since that have caused me to believe in spirits more.
Okay.
About 6 or 7 years ago, I was cutting grass, which I do a lot of, and I left the gate open again, which I normally don't do, and a car came down the drive.
Okay.
And it was a young man, and he stopped me and said, "Do you live here?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, my name's Brian. I'm a nurse at St. Vincent's, and I'm a medium."
Okay.
And he said, "The spirits brought me here."
Okay.
And
I
thought
really need some dramatic music for
Yeah,
I know. But
so
that's a good story, man.
at this point, I thought, well, I'm going to write off about a couple hours because I've heard this. So
Right.
people are always stopping to tell me things about the property.
Right.
So I said, sure, I'll talk to you. I'll meet you up at the house. So I meet him at the house, and he says, as I stated, he is a medium, and he's seen and heard spirits since he was very young. And he says, when I have people to the house that make contact with the spirits, they're not helping them. And he described it as moving on.
Okay.
And I said, well, help them. And he says, well, I can't. And while we're talking, this is all within about 5 minutes, he says, who's Helen? And I said, I don't know who's Helen. He said, it's your wife's mother's best friend. The girls called her Aunt Helen. She's
Okay.
here.
Wow.
And then he said, who's Jean? And I think he threw me off with the Helen thing. And I said, I don't know who's Jean. He said, it's your wife's mother's sister, Aunt Jean. The girls
Okay.
said, now, both of these people died in other states a long time ago. I'm not listening to any obituaries. So I don't know how he would know these sort of things, but he did.
Okay.
So Brian is his name. His stock kind of went up with me.
Okay. And he and interestingly,
They came in through the portal, by the way.
That's right, through the portal.
so
right.
you still
Yes.
use that bathroom? So
Absolutely.
you just
Yeah,
you don't have to
absolutely.
flush; it just disappears.
That's right.
No, so but he was able
signs.
to sort of do things that were or say some things or know some information that was beyond what may be in the papers from a serial killer or what may be in beyond.
Right.
So he found out, he was able to track down information through the spirits about you and your family that
Yes.
would not be public knowledge.
He says that certain people have a light,
Okay.
and the spirits come to or appear to the people that have the light.
Okay.
He has a light.
I think Stephen King called it The Shining.
It could be.
Oh, yeah.
People that have, and he calls it a gift.
Okay.
He says, I wouldn't wish the gift on anyone because it's a constant bombardment of messages.
Okay.
And he just knows things that I don't know how he knows them. And he just said there was a lot of activity, spirit activity on
Okay.
the farm, certainly from victims of the killer, but also Native American spirits.
Okay.
He said it's a very, very active spiritual place.
And so you that kind of turned it for you a little bit, that experience?
It made me pause that I don't know how someone would know things like
Okay.
that. He's a very sincere, genuine type person. And all of these people that have come to the property never ask for anything.
Right.
They don't ask for money to tell
Right.
me this. They just volunteer this information. So I'm almost forced to believe it.
Sure.
This same person was at the property another time later, and he met my youngest girlfriend. And he saw this
Son's
girl.
girlfriend. Just
Wait.
so
Yeah.
I don't get you in trouble.
So
You don't have a
is it
girlfriend.
a real girlfriend?
Your son's
My
girlfriend.
youngest son's
Oh,
girlfriend.
no.
I'm sorry.
Left that part.
You
out.
said your youngest girlfriend, and I'm like,
my
how many
youngest
you got
girlfriend.
lined up here,
Well, yeah.
And how young is she?
bro? How young is she?
Yeah, for the record, it's William's girlfriend.
Okay, William. So your youngest
Trying to save it,
son's
Rob.
girlfriend.
Yeah,
So he met her.
she's over there. Brian,
Gotcha.
the medium.
This
sees,
almost got a little Epstein.
Yeah.
So watch
Yeah,
out there,
sorry,
buddy.
Sorry. So
Didn't kill himself.
Brian sees this young lady across the driveway and says, "I need to speak to her."
Okay.
So I'd only met her once. I
Right.
think her name was Erin. I waved her over. I said, Brian wanted to speak to you. And Brian says, I have a message from your grandmother.
Okay.
He said, she wants me to tell you she loved watching the goldfinches on the back porch with you. And the young girl just screams. She said, we loved watching, my grandmother and I loved watching, her grandmother's dead.
Right.
Loved watching the goldfinches on the back porch. So there's no way he would know that.
Right.
I don't know how
that's
he knows.
That's a personal
Yeah.
detail.
I
that
never
even if
met
you
the girl.
Google
I'd only
something-
met her maybe once.
Yeah, but even if you happen to Google something, it's not like, oh, in your Wikipedia, it's like, I enjoyed watching goldfinches
It
with my
wasn't,
grandma.
it wasn't blue
Grandpa,
ones
yeah.
or red ones.
Right.
It was gold ones.
Yeah.
Very, very specific.
Right.
So I believe there's something to,
That ability, yeah.
That's
there's
kind of-
something to it.
So this whole thing is really between your wife and this Brian and this experience. It's opened your eyes to the potential that this
Right.
may be. There's something more to our lives after we're dead and gone that may
Yes.
be residual and sticking around.
If you believe
Does that
Brian,
sound
there,
right?
there are spirits all around
Sure.
us all the time.
So let's move on to
I-
someone
don't-
who believes it all.
You have guardian angels, though. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you're speaking of the shaman.
Shaman, yeah.
Shamans.
Yes, throughout,
Night Otter.
yeah. So we had an Indian shaman come.
Okay.
and try to
Nighthawk is his name, right?
Bless the. His name was Blue Hawk.
Blue Hawk.
Blue Hawk.
Yeah,
Nice.
Blue
From
Hawk
Wisconsin.
came from Wisconsin, and,
Yeah.
and he was he was going to bless the property, and he did give us some
Protection?
He gave us some
Tell
protection.
us about the trees.
We had to do certain things to appease the Native American spirits primarily because he felt the ground was desecrated by the murders.
Got it.
And that we need to sort of make peace with all that. And he gave me some instructions on how to do that. One was to feed the trees.
And you're open-minded about all this, even though being a skeptic, you're willing to do it, right?
These people seem very sincere, and I
Sure.
don't have the answers, so why not?
Right. So, but that's kind of an interesting thing. But now, on the flip side of that, you legitimately, Joe, have seen ghosts. This for you is like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This is real for you. This
Yeah.
really happens. So, is that just the one experience that you have? Because we've made reference here to that you lived in the above the garage and
Yeah.
in the in-law quarters, which is where Herb was towards the end of this thing.
Well, I think they disrupted his life a lot.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at here. So there's other stories. So give us some of the other examples of things that has happened to you, because
Well, like Vicky experienced the character with the red shirt twice.
Right.
William has experienced the door knocking and someone walking across the hardwood floor with leather bottom men's dress shoes. At least how he described it. And then Rob, you told me you had experience in the basement twice with the
with other men.
pump room and
Just sorry.
whatnot. But
Rob, have you ever seen a grown man naked?
no,
Yeah,
but-
do you really like?
I do hang around the gymnasium.
Do you like gladiator films?
That's right. Movies about gladiators.
But I had some strange experiences. I didn't know what to think of it all. Kind of like
Right.
how Vicky, when she saw that, she was embarrassed to talk about it. And
Right.
when how Rob got me to put on the red shirt and run through the woods, I thought it was funny until I saw something later in the week,
Right.
and that's when Vicky and she agreed with me. She said, "I don't know what we saw, but we saw the same thing."
Right.
And we both didn't want to talk about it to anybody.
Right.
We felt like
So
there's
thanks for
something wrong
coming
with us.
on the Soon to Be Legends podcast to talk about it.
That's right. And the strange thing was when the Indian shaman came for the Blue Hawk for the movie, I got in my car with
For the movie, there was a movie.
yeah. There's a
Well, it was part of
Paranormal documentary.
paranormal
Okay.
documentary.
Yeah,
So you've had a couple of these things
Yeah.
filmed there. Like
Several.
Okay. So
Several.
so this guy has me put up my hand, and he has this wooden staff with feathers on it or whatever,
Right.
and he puts this black rock in my hand. He has me curl up my hand around the rock, and he has me close my eyes, and he said that they come to you because you have this light or something like that. They
Okay.
can let you know they're there, which I don't know what all that means, but anyway, and he said, this isn't the first place you've ever witnessed the afterlife or paranormal or
Okay.
whatever you want to call it. And he said that it was when I lived in Wisconsin, when I was a small child. I was like
And he's talking about you, even though this
Yeah.
guy's from Wisconsin. So
3
now
or 4,
he is
3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
And I don't remember any of this.
Okay.
And he's telling me there's a cornfield behind your home, and you were looking out the back window. It was very late at night, and you saw this guy covered in red, this Indian war chief in the backyard. I said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I have no clue what you're talking about. And then he tapped his wooden staff on the ground twice, and then I remembered it. And I called my mom after this, and she said, Joe, when you were 3 or 4 years old, you talked about this for years. Your story never changed. And she said that there was the devil in the backyard that walked
Right,
out of the cornfield. Sure. And whenever we'd go down the processed meat aisle, I'd point at the deviled ham and said, that's the guy with the pitchfork and the tail. And he was red. And anyway, he said, no, he wasn't the devil. That was an Indian war chief that lost all his men, and there had been a lot of Native Americans killed in that area,
in Wisconsin,
hundreds of years ago.
Jeez.
In battles. And so I thought that was interesting.
So you didn't even remember it. This guy told you, this shaman told you what you remembered.
And I had to call my mom.
Call
and
your
she
mom.
Goes, yeah,
like,
you talked about this. So
crazy.
the guy had my attention.
Yeah.
And I would say the 2 days he was there, he stirred up things in the house. Like
spiritually.
Rob, yeah.
Okay.
If Rob wants to admit or not, he saw something in the basement.
Yeah, they didn't like him being there.
Yeah, and then I saw something outside walking out the front door of the house, and it was just all the energy was really high in the house for a couple of days, and it kind of died down. But the guy had my attention, and I thought it was quite interesting. But I had some strange experiences. I saw this 17-year-old boy. I don't know why I know the age, but that's what would come to my mind every time I'd see it. I had a black lab that would always react before things would happen.
So that black lab was real, or was that also a ghost dog?
No, he was
Fred.
real.
So a real dog. So a real dog would react to things that you're seeing.
He was my canary in a coal mine,
if
you will.
Cool.
And I saw this.
So this 17-year-old boy just wandered around your house?
The first time I saw him, I thought it was maybe a car driving down the driveway. I saw this flash of motion. Right. And I saw it like a flash again, but I just blew it off because, if I saw a shadow or something in the corner, I would go, ooh, a ghost. It was just, and then when you see something a second, third, and fourth time, you start noticing details.
Right.
Like more details like what's on your shirt or how tall you are, color eyes and whatnot.
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, this is over the 2.5 years I witnessed this, and then when people are coming out to the house for the ghost hunter people as we call them, they were telling me what I saw, and we didn't put this online. We didn't publicly talk about it. We didn't talk about it at all. But they would come to the house and tell us things that only myself and Vicky would see, and things we felt.
So that sort of verifies those things for you. That not only do you have this personal experience that you may or may not understand, but somebody else is independently corroborating that. That like, hey, this is what you saw, and then that's how you became a believer, I guess is what I get at. Anything else?
So I felt like something was trying to let me know it was there.
Right.
The door would get kicked open. It was a deadbolt.
What door? Your door to your house? The door to your
residence? The front door, which is on about a story and a half tall.
Right, blow out, the door would come open?
There'd be no wind. There's a big tree right in front of the door. The leaves were never rustling in the wind or anything like that.
And the door would just fly open?
It would fly open and hit the wall or hit another door. And so that happened about 34 sometimes. And then...
Did you say 34 times?
Yeah, I had it all documented. Times, dates.
And you didn't bother to get another deadbolt or something?
No.
34 times.
My landlord wouldn't get me one.
I'm a slumlord.
No, seriously, like... So if that happens 34 times, you've got this shaman experience, you've seen this red shirt guy.
I just thought it was interesting at that point. And then everything would always escalate, and then it would stop. Like it would start about 11:45 at night, then it would kind of work its way up to 1:45 in the morning, then it would stop.
Oh, so you mean this would happen nightly?
It was like over
not
6 or 7, 8 months or so. And then the creepiest thing in the apartment had to have been the door knocking.
Door knocking?
It was this big, heavy brass door knocker.
Okay.
It would knock 7 times in a row. It was like a heavy knock, a delay, and then a heavy knock. It was always 7 times in a row.
Okay.
That 11:45 to 1:45 time frame, and it was always only 7 knocks. It wasn't like a push tap. It was this long, but much louder, much louder. And
So move the mic. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that sounded really loud, actually.
That's actually pretty good. Yeah, we're good.
and then I had 35 documented times that happened. The last time it ever happened, it knocked for 20 minutes, and I had called Rob. I mean, this is
When did you stop answering the door?
well, I was mad. It was like, is this a joke? Is the house on fire?
Or the kids
You
tying?
know, some idiot kid outside, but it's the same pausing.
Right.
So who would really know that other than myself? It was the same pause of knocks, but it was 20 minutes straight in a row.
Okay.
And so I put my hand, it's a true paneled door. I put my hand on the different panels, and the panel that had the door knocker on it, you could feel it
Vibrate.
reverse.
So you literally were holding the door when it knocked.
Yeah, and I could
Touching
feel it
it.
on that one
Wow.
panel. So I thought, okay, what the heck's going on? I flipped on the outside lights, it's still knocking.
Okay.
So I put my shoes on, wedged my foot against the door, opened the door about this far. Again, if you're to jump off the balcony, it's
That's a fall.
15
it's
feet.
a story and a
10 feet,
half,
yeah.
let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be.
If you have no legs, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
With floating.
So I'm looking down the stairs. I'm trying to look off in the distance, someone running down the driveway, laughing or something like that. But I look right in front of me as the door knocker is completely horizontal. And
So
it
it's
didn't
like
just-
swung up.
Yeah, it was completely horizontal, and then it lifts up, and it doesn't just drop; it slams down. And that's the last time it ever did it for me. And then when,
So you literally watched that happen.
yeah, and I thought, okay, grab the dog, some clothes, stay.
Rob,
at my
you need to
parents'
find
for
a new
couple days,
room.
I was out.
It's like, so Rob, so
Right.
I'm guessing you don't live there now.
No. But what was interesting was Rob said, when we were at work one day, he said, Joe, did that stuff really happen in the apartment? I said, of course it did. What has happened to William? His
And
son
so this
William?
is since you moved out.
Yeah.
He's asking you, did that
Years
stuff
later.
later happen?
And then I said, I was immediately concerned for William, his son William. I
Right.
said,
Who's
what
living in there now?
happened to William?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
You know, you're asking me for a reason.
Right.
What's wrong with William? Is it bugging him? He said, yeah. His friend was staying over, and they heard footsteps across the hardwood or the hard floor in the kitchen, and I used to hear it all the time. And
Right.
in a creaky old house, not that it's that old, but you can tell which way a person is walking across the floor
Sure.
by there's a creak, a deep
Right.
creak, a light creak, and then a crunch or something.
Yeah.
You know, there's a certain direction you could tell they're walking if you
Right.
hear it enough. So anyway, William heard this, and then his other friend was in the family room, and he heard it because William yelled, "Are you hearing this?" And he
Right.
says, "Yeah, this is insane." And then the door knocking started. And it was, and so I said, okay, Rob, I wrote something down on a piece of paper, folded it over, and slid it to him. Said, we'll open that afterwards. He didn't know I did this, but so he calls William and says, what time did the door knocking happen? It was
Right.
whenever I sent you a text, Dad.
Right.
1:45. How many door knocks was it? It was 7. It was 7.
Right.
And okay, all right. So then I said, now open that piece of paper I slid over at you. He goes, what are you talking about? It's right there.
Okay.
7 door knocks, 1:45 in the morning. I said, do you believe me now? He goes,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Oh, that's
it was
crazy.
interesting.
So that's some crazy stuff going on there. So now that we've gone through that, serial
Sure.
killer, bought the house, live in the house, ghost activity, paranormal stuff. That's what the horrors of Fox Hollow Farms. The property is called Fox Hollow Farms,
Yeah,
and
that's
this is
correct.
what the book is about. Correct?
Right. Yeah, I was approached
So-
by a guy named Richard Eastep in Colorado, and he said, "Would you? I want to write a book about your property. Would you help?"
Okay.
And I said, "Well," and I knew Richard was a paranormal investigator. I said, "I'm really not into that. That's not my thing." But
Right.
I said, "I'll write the factual part of the case
Okay.
and of the story." So that's what I did. So the first.
So what does this really cover? Does this cover everything, or like we've talked about here?
Yeah,
So
it
it's
just
a
pretty much
synopsis?
covers what
Okay.
we've talked about. I start with the history of the house, and we moved in, and then Richard covers the paranormal stuff.
Okay.
And,
And we're talking about a whole book's worth of detail as well here.
right, Richard was there, I think 4 days with his group, and but like I said, I'm more involved with the factual part of it.
Right. Yeah. So I guess this can be purchased.
Right, it's on Amazon. It's also on Audible,
Okay.
and you can also get it at Barnes and Noble.
Nice. That's cool. So anything else, Clark? You want to
Just
talk about that?
any big
Any big news? Anything coming up?
Any big things? People coming out? New films or
Anything?
We the first production we were involved with was the Haunting of Fox Hollow Farm, which was produced by
Dan
a
Hall.
local filmmaker,
Dan T.
Dan
Hall,
Hall, Dan T. Hall. And Dan kind of warned me at the time. He said, when you get on the radar with this sort of stuff, you're not going to get off the radar.
Right.
And he was correct.
And you've sort of embraced that now, so to some degree.
Yeah, from going where we didn't want to even talk about this anymore to we were just sort of drugged down this other path to kind of tell the story.
Right.
And it's really taken on a life of its own. But we've done Paranormal Witness, which is on the Sci-Fi Channel. We did Ghost Adventures, which is the Travel Channel. We did Behind Mansion Walls, which was a show about rich people killing each other, not so much about the paranormal stuff.
Okay.
And then True TV did a documentary, and then there are some others that we were not involved with. A&E,
Right,
Secret Life of a Serial Killer. But there's been many, many podcasts on this. Some I participate with, some I do not.
Right.
A lot of bad information about the case, which I'm kind of
And
stickler
so,
for the case.
which is good, right? Because I think at this point, from a factual standpoint, you're pretty much an expert on the Bowelmeister situation. Yeah.
I seem to be.
Yeah.
But there is still a lot of bad information on
Oh, that's good.
the case out there. But yeah,
Oh, that's great. Are you planning on moving? You gonna stay there?
for a while.
Okay, I mean,
All right.
you pretty much just got all the maintenance stuff done. So
It finally looks nice.
you're finally to the roof and
yeah,
everything.
I always say anyone that wants a big house has never had a big house
Yeah.
because it is the money pit.
Yeah.
It sucks money at a horrendous rate, and I have to work as long as I have it.
Yeah.
I could retire if I didn't have it. But,
in the time it takes.
it's a very, very time consuming. If you don't pay to have this stuff done, like cutting the grass, you have to do it yourself.
Well,
And
cutting the grass
Well,
is a whole
thanks.
day adventure, right?
it is it's
Well,
yeah.
thank you for taking a day off from mowing your grass and come in and chat with us.
Sure.
And I think we're going to kind of wrap this up. But thanks for coming in and having a chat with us. And then we're going to move on and have some music from the other room.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right.
All right.
Clark, we're out.
We'll see you next time we see you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Tay Bronson. And, I'm here today to play y'all a few songs off of my album titled Drinks and Memories. So we're just gonna pick one and roll with it. This is a sweet little love song off it called Supposed to Be With You. Some of my head and most of my heart been walking around dead like they're missing a part. Got a feeling like there's something I gotta do. Maybe I'm supposed to be with you. Been thinking about how it all could have been, and I hope the night brought us all to an end. Really doesn't matter now, there's nothing I can do. Maybe I'm supposed to be with you. I'll fill up my days and a drink through the nights. Want you out of my head, gotta move on with my life. I can't shake it, baby, there's nothing I can do. Maybe I'm supposed to be with you. I can't shake it, baby, there's nothing I can do. Maybe I'm supposed to be with you. Maybe I'm supposed to be with you. Maybe I'm supposed to be with you. Kind of messed it up in the middle. So I wrote this song out in the mountains. It's gonna be my cowboy song, but then I ended up making it a song about birthdays, so I wouldn't have to sing the happy birthday song when I'm out playing. Sing my own song. This is called the birthday song. Crack of a cap gun and a puff of smoke. Knock it back with the swig from a glass bottle Coke. Memories from the age of 9 and what seemed to be a different time, but now I'm what some folks might call old. Well, my 9th birthday was my favorite one. Box of caps and cowboy hats for everyone. And ever since that day, when I hear about a birthday, I wish that I was 9 again. Will you be Tonto? I'll be John Wayne. Saddle up and ride along. Help me sing my birthday song. Yippee-ki-oh, yippee-ki-yay. We're gonna celebrate a birthday today. Well, my next favorite, I turned 21. Local bar and lots of shots for everyone. But what really made my day, somehow I slipped away and had a tryst with my high school girlfriend. You be Tonto, I'll be John Wayne. Saddle up and ride along. Help me sing my birthday song. Yippee-ki-oh, yippee-ki-yay. We're gonna celebrate a birthday today. Guess I'm gonna pick it now. Well, we're all here now, so let's celebrate. Blow out the candles and let's cut the cake. Let's throw back a shot. Join the band, we're about to rock and help us kick his birthday song along. Will you be Tonto? I'll be John Wayne. Saddle up and ride along. Help me sing my birthday song. Yippee-ki-oh, yippee-ki-yay. We're gonna celebrate a birthday today. We're gonna celebrate a birthday today. Happy birthday, baby, happy birthday today. to day. Birthday song. All right. We're gonna do this is kind of my signature song. I think that my dad left me with this one when he left this world. And, anyway, it took me to Montana, and last year I got to go play Yellowstone Songwriters Festival because of it. Anyway, I don't think it's done opening doors for me, so it's called Willard's Song. In 1980, I was 9 years old, had my own tackle box and fishing pole, toting it all over town on my Huffy. I'd always turn that old back around, get her home long before the sun went down. I'd usually be waiting on him in the driveway. Hey Dad, let's go fishing, I don't care for casting or jigging. Let's find a pond, maybe float the river. What I really wanna do is spend some time together. Hey Dad, you got time to go fishing with me? He was a really hard-working man, just trying to run a business under Carter's plan. A big old house on the hill that everyone could see. And at the end of the day, when he was tired and spent, he grabbed me in those poles, man, and off we went. And sometimes he'd even leave his supper on the table. Hey Dad, let's go fishing, I don't care for casting or jigging. Let's find a lake or maybe float the river. What I really wanna do is spend some time together. It'd be nice to catch a fish or three, but it's really all about just you and me. Hey Dad, you got time to go fishing with me? Well, by the late 90s he had more time to go, but I was playing a band, man, and we were on the road. I can't go fishing, Dad, I gotta cut another album. So he'd up the ante till I couldn't say no. From the deep woods of Canada way down to Mexico. That included a shore lunch with frozen margaritas. He'd say, hey son, let's go fishing, I don't care for casting or jigging. Let's find a lake or maybe float the river. What I really wanna do is spend some time together. It'd be nice to catch a fish at 33. We're the best damn fishermen in history. Hey son, you got time to go fishing with me? Now he's gone and oh how I miss him. Here's the moral of my story if you take time to listen. Drop what you're doing right now and take your dad fishing. Just say, hey Dad, let's go fishing, I don't care for casting or jigging. Let's find a lake or maybe float the river. What I really wanna do is spend some time together. It'd be nice to catch a fish or three, but it's really all about just you and me. Hey son, you got time to go fishing with me? Hey Dad, you know you'll always be fishing with me. I'm Tay Bronson. Thanks so much for listening.